Welcome to the Advancement Podcast. This is Taylor Schote with Tim Ware, the president of Advancement Coaching and Consulting. Today, we will be discussing practical insights for pastors and church leaders to advance your life, your work, and your ministry. Are you ready to advance?
We want to thank today's sponsor, Wowco Equipment in Baytown, Texas. Hey, here we are, episode 13.
13, we've made it this far.
13, we've made it this far, so that's good. Good to be with you again today.
I always love coming back and sitting at the table with you, Tim.
I really look back on this journey and I think, oh my gosh, I really dreaded it, just to be totally honest. I knew we were going to have good, Marco was going to do good behind there, and I knew I dreaded this part of it because I just really was not confident, but I have so much fun. You get to hang out with you guys, and of course, we always have fun together.
Yeah.
So
this is just the first time someone's recorded our conversation. So this is kind of dangerous, if anything.
Yeah, it's true. We have to now be careful that we don't always.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to say that. I'm going to stop right there. Yeah. The process, the topic, today's topic is one that I get asked about. I've probably been asked about, 1,000 times in working in what I do. I've taken this and done conference talks on it. I've written. I actually, for a season a few years ago, I was blogging, and this was two blogs on this topic. And actually, you being here, Marco being here, y'all went through what we're talking about, because today we had somebody ask us to talk about recruiting.
Recruiting, yep.
Now, they're talking about recruiting volunteers, and you and Marco, I treated y'all exactly like what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, you took us through a process.
Why? But this becomes important because I don't know of any church that would say they have enough volunteers.
If so, I would love to speak with you because I've never worked for a church that had enough volunteers.
Well, and beyond volunteers, I think we don't even have a pipeline.
Yep.
But the difficulty, I remember coming up in church and the way I was, the way I was recruited, whether it was for staff or volunteer, whatever, there was this sheepishness to it. There was no confidence. There was inconsistency. And I've learned over the years that there are some principles that we can apply, that if we follow the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this, I gave my notes to someone recently to teach a group, and they said, this group that had been meeting for 6 months, and they said, "Why didn't you teach us this at the beginning?" Well, because we were, sorry.
Yeah.
Couldn't get it all in. So today we want to talk about the recruiting, and you'll remember as we go through this how I did this. Let me ask you a question. So before we get started, what's recruiting look like at your church? Do y'all have a process? What does the recruiting look like?
Yeah, I think we're constantly trying to change things, like every church, trying to do better. Right now recruiting looks like, I'm a little embarrassed to say, we have a need. Will you help us fill a need?
Okay. Well, so let's just start with.
And I know that that's not the best way.
Yeah, don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. I'm so disappointed.
Forgive me, Master.
I will cry.
Yeah.
That old adage of see a need, meet a need. Well, that's really great if everybody's assertive.
Right.
But most people are not.
No. And it's great if everyone understands, when we get into this recruiting conversation here, I hope that we touch on that serving is beyond, like, we want to help people connect to serving because there's a kingdom principle in that.
Well, it's actually part of the mission.
Yeah, and not everyone understands that. So yeah, I'm really excited about today's conversation.
Well, the very first thing that we have to do when we recruit is we actually know why we're recruiting people. So when I sat down with you, I was being recruited. Let's talk about podcasts. I had people wanting encouraging me, do the podcast. So I started trying to figure out, okay, what do I need? I'm listening to podcasts, and we kind of decided on kind of a model. Meeting with some people that helped me. We wanted a model, so I knew I had to have somebody that was technical. I had to have somebody that was technical, knew what they were doing with this. I had no clue.
Yeah.
I mean, unless I was just going to sit and stare at a screen, but with the model of the co-host and the dialogue, I couldn't do it. So the first thing I had to do was identify what I needed. I had 2 needs, and then what were those roles going to be? And you'll remember both of you would remember the conversations that we had where I said, "This is what I walked you through," because here's the reality: is you don't recruit unless you've got we always say job description. Some pastors would say, make sure we don't do jobs in the church. This is ministry.
Oh boy.
So. Yeah. Then have a ministry description, but whatever. You need to know what you're doing.
Right.
If you can't tell me if you come to me and can't tell me what you want me to do, then why should I even work?
Yeah. Oftentimes I think this is the conversation. I can recap it real quick. Hey, we need your help back in the nursery. Well, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
And the recruiter kind of gets this blank stare in the face of like, well, we need you to just come back here and be in the nursery. And in our minds, we're just thinking everything that I know I'm supposed to do, I need you to do it. But the person who's being recruited, and I don't blame them, they want to know, what are you asking of me?
I was working with a group. We've got a group of churches coming together. I may have talked about it before. We're helping them break the 200 barrier. So we've got this group, and we were talking about budgets and the budget team, and one of the pastors raised, and he said, "So what does a budget team member do?" I said, "Are you asking for a job description?" He said, "Yeah." He said, I know that I need it, but I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah.
He said, "Could you write one?" And I have pastors ask me, I'm trying to build them over time, and I can build a database. And I guess I'm going to put this down. I could put some of those things out on our website as a resource, as some free resources, some samples for people. Is you need to have a job description.
Yeah.
A simple job description, especially for a volunteer. We're not talking about a department head, but a volunteer. Just 5 or 6 bullet points, 1 sentence, 2 sentences. Don't make it too complex. All right, let's take a nursery worker. I need you to, here would be my job description. Let's just make one up. I need you to commit to working once a month, 2 services, so you're going to give the whole morning. I need you to be on time, that you can arrive at this time, can pass a background check. We'll come to a training. Here we go. And can change diapers.
Whew, I'm out.
Well, I don't know. I'm just being simple.
Yeah.
But either way, we can create a simple job description. It's not that, for a custodian, we need you to clean this day. You have to clean. We want the bathrooms cleaned every week. We want the sanctuary vacuumed every week. We want the foyer mopped once a month. You just set down the expectation so people know this is what I have to do.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing with the job description is you're really setting the expectations of what you're looking for. And I want to encourage anyone listening, if you're like me who can get bogged down in the details, you can. When I sometimes get a little bit of anxiety when someone asks me to write a job description. And I've written a lot, especially where I'm at now, because we didn't have those when I came. And don't get weighted down in the details.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Especially with volunteers, keep it simple. But the reality is, if you don't know what you want, then how do they know what they're agreeing to?
Right.
Why should I agree? Because you're not telling me you want me. I don't know what this means. How often you want me to work? Am I supposed to, am I in charge? Are you going to leave me alone back there?
Yeah. Really, I think probably the best way to look at when you sit down and write a job description is what questions would you ask if you were being asked to do a job?
Answer the question.
Answer those questions.
So the first thing is you don't recruit anybody
until you have a job description.
You have a job description. That's number 1.
Okay.
The number 2 step is pretty simple. It's a 3-part step. Pray, and pray some more. Traditionally what we'll do is we'll stand in the pulpit and we'll say, we need volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do a y'all come, we used to, back in the old days, we call it a y'all come choir. Back in the small church and rural churches, everybody wants to come sing in the choir, and people would get up and you don't know who you're going to get.
Whew.
So we don't want y'all come. We want to be more specific. I love the passage where it says Jesus has got all these disciples, and it says he went to the mountain and he prayed all night, and he came down and he selected 12. So have I taken my job description? Now that I have a job description, taken it into my prayer closet and said, Lord, who are the people that you're putting it in their heart, that you've been preparing to do this? Now, I may need one person, but I'm never asking for one name. I want a list. I want multiple names. This is a key piece right here. There's something about, when we talked about the podcast, I said your name kept coming to the top of the list, right? Is that not what I said?
It is.
Kept coming to the top of the list because...
Must have been a short list, but...
There were 3 names on the list.
Okay.
I always say that until you've got at least 3 names, you don't recruit, because whether or not we know it, when we only have one name, then we actually can project a little bit of a sense of desperation because I don't have a backup. I don't have another option. I don't. But if I've got 3 names, when I talk to you, I say, I've been praying about this, and I've got some people, but I keep feeling like the Lord's saying it's you. I may be wrong. What have I just said to you? If you say no, I've got some others. I'm not desperate. I'm trying to figure out if this is what Jesus wants.
Yeah. That's good.
So I pray until I've got a few names, and then I go out. So that's the first thing. First step is get a job description. Second step is take the job description in and begin to pray and ask Jesus, whose names should I begin to think might attach to this job description. There you go.
I like it.
Step 3. This is maybe one of the harder ones too, is recruit in person.
So don't do an email.
Don't do an email.
Not a text message.
No, don't stand in the pulpit. You recruit in person. Now, I will say with you, because of distance, I recruited you over the phone. Marco was close enough. I bought him lunch. We sat and talked. But if I'm recruiting, when I'm recruiting in a church, I'll take them out to coffee. I'll buy them lunch. But I'm always going to recruit in person, because I need to watch them. I need them to see me. I need them to feel the passion. I need them to know that they're special enough, they're important enough that I took time to come and meet with you personally.
That's good. I think we forget how much the personal touch actually builds trust and builds relationship, the value on that in the relationship. Again, and even going back to it speaks more out of you are valuable and worth it. And I'm not just asking out of desperation. I'm not just scrolling my phone, my email contact list. You're not just a blind carbon copy, email to somebody, to anyone who will respond. Well,
I think it also says that this position's important enough.
Yeah.
I'm asking you to do something, but I want you to know this is important enough that I have sought you out.
Yeah, that's good.
And if I'm buying you coffee or I'm buying you lunch, and it's worth the investment in you and in this time financially. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to set aside time. Now people go, well, I need 50 volunteers. Well, that's 50 meetings. That actually could be 150 meetings.
Yeah.
Recruiting takes time.
Yeah.
If they don't all, and just know you're not always going to get them right off the bat. But after you've got a job description, I'm going to pray. Then I'm going to meet them in person, and I'm going to bring the job description with me, because I'm going to be able to slide it across the table.
That's really good.
I want to give it to them to take home. I'm going to bring 2 copies because I'm going to read. I'm going to have mine. We're going to walk through it together.
Yeah.
So.
That's really well. I was going to ask. So when you're in person, what kind of ask do you put on them?
Okay, so that's the next. That's really the step 4 is we're going to recruit out of vision, not out of need. Because you said it earlier. It's hey, we need somebody in the nursery. There's nothing missional about that. I don't want you to come because I need you. I want you to become because God's put something in you that he wants to release through you.
Yeah.
So if I'm recruiting for the nursery, so let's, I want to do two things. I need to tie it. The vision I've got to release in this conversation is I got to release the vision of Christ. I've got to connect it to the mission. I want to connect it to the vision of the church, and I want to connect it to the vision in their life. I want to connect it to them personally. So if I'm recruiting someone for the nursery, I'm going to say, some people would say that this may not be a highly important job, but you know what I recognize is that Jesus said, "Don't keep the little kids from me."
Yeah.
He actually said that we need to come to him like a child.
Yeah.
There's something special about children in the heart of Jesus. And in this church, that we're putting a value on children. We've put a lot of money into that. We got the great signs up. This is important to us. And as I was praying and I realized, as I saw your face, I recognized how the gift, the love gift you have in you. And I thought, how powerful that they could be the one before this child can understand the gospel, they can experience the love of Christ through your hands, through your touch, through your ministry.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm ready to serve in the nursery right now, Tim. You tell me what room to go into.
You're so full of it.
When you were sharing that, I thought how different that is, how different it sounds from We Need Somebody. Because you know what I was just thinking? Nobody wants to be a somebody.
No, they don't. And nobody wants to just go change diapers.
Yeah.
But to get the chance to touch them with the love of Jesus, to be some of the first people in their life, the first people in the church to show.
Yeah, that's so good.
So vision this is a critical piece. Not only am I giving them a job description, but I'm saying this is part of the mission of Christ. This is part of the mission of Christ that we're asking you to steward.
Yeah.
To carry.
Yeah. And if you do that for every position, every place where a volunteer has the opportunity to serve, you really do help connect. There really, at that point, then is no lesser position.
When we talk about custodians, I talk to people about you're getting it ready for the harvest that comes.
Yeah.
So when people who don't know come in, don't know Christ, when they come in the building, they'll be comfortable. This place will be ready for people to come meet Jesus.
Yeah. That's so good.
You connect them to the harvest that way. When you're recruiting somebody for the parking lot, you're the first person you'll be the first expression of Jesus people will see and encounter when they come on this property.
Yeah, I love it.
It's easy. It sounds easy to recruit. It's easy to recruit for the worship team, but the vision of Christ expands throughout everything that he has, every gift. I mean, the accountant. We're going to give an account. The bookkeeper. We're going to give an account, and stewardship that's one of those things that Paul writes about.
Yeah.
And we know that the gift of God in you not only have a passion, but you seem to have a gift for numbers, and for you to be able to help us be stewards of the resources Jesus has given us.
Yeah, that's so good.
So you can take that from any perspective. Now, what it means is we say this a lot in the podcast about being intentional. But that means I have to intentionally write it. Oh, so I've intentionally written a job description. I've intentionally prayed. Now I've intentionally set aside time and had this meeting, right, in person. And now I have intentionally thought through where's the vision, what's the visionary piece in this?
Yeah. Tim, when you recruit, I've heard many thoughts on this. Do you give people a timeline of when they would start and when they'd stop?
Well, I think that's most of the time when I'm writing a job description, I'll put that in. I mean, even with this, we said we were going to test for a season, and we set aside talking with both of you guys. I said, okay, we're going to test, and we're going to set it up to test through the end of the year. And back in November, we had a conversation. Y'all both said, let's keep going. There's always a start and a stop, because, in church work, the old adage is, you become an indentured servant. Back in the old days, we recruit you to do a Sunday school class. You're there forever.
Forever.
There's no way out.
Yeah.
And we talked, I think it was episode 10 of the podcast about authority and keeping authority clean. So having a start-stop does a couple things. It lets your recruit know when I'm going to start. I need you to start. So if I'm recruiting for the nursery, I'd like you to start at the beginning of March. And can you do this through the end of the summer? I'm going to give them expectations. Now, I may know I need somebody longer than that, but at that stop point, we near that stop point, it's the chance for us to move the authority back here and me go, man, you have done such a good job. Do you want to do it again?
Yeah. Yeah. With that, Tim, what I've also seen be such a great help for the leader is when things aren't going as so hot, what you just said, it brings the authority back and say, man, thank you for fulfilling the commitment that you made. And you can honor somebody and at the same time be transitioning them to a place of better ministry for them, so that you can, whatever you need to do on this side. Or if you're thinking about closing a ministry down or anything, being able to leverage that authority back in a way that doesn't, because it's a lot harder to go to Sister McGillicuddy and say, hey, we're shutting down the ministry. And you go, well, I've been faithful for 20 plus years and you doing what you asked me to do.
Yeah, so start-stop is critical for a lot of reasons. It gives you the chance. It gives both parties a chance to get out of it. It moves that authority. It gives them. When they start, they know where the end is.
Yeah,
nobody wants to be in this thing forever, right?
Yeah.
And then step 6 is that you need to establish a specific time for response. So what that means is that we're coming to the end of our conversation, and I'm going to say, okay, now the way I do it when I'm recruiting people face to face is I'll say to them, I want you to, this is what I feel like Jesus has said, but I'd like you to go back and take a week and talk to Jesus and hear from him for yourself.
Yeah. That's exactly what you asked me to do.
That is.
Yeah.
And now when I'm meeting with people in person, I'll take out my phone and I'll say, hey, I'm going to call you on, and they'll see me put a reminder in my phone. Didn't I do that, Marco? He's nodding his head. Yeah, because I put a reminder in my phone. I'm going to call you on this day, and they see the reminder. So I'm creating integrity. I'm establishing this is going to be a good relationship. I'm going to honor my word, and I'm going to call them back and say, hey, what do you think? What did Jesus say?
Yeah.
Now, sometimes Jesus says no. Now, in some circumstances, in a lot of church ministry, in some historic church ministry pieces, I have been the guy. I can be a little strong-handed. If there's somebody that I know should be serving, and this is important to their growth, and they keep resisting, in this moment, I might even say, if you don't feel like Jesus says this is where you should be serving, then ask him where he thinks you should be serving. And if this isn't it, tell me, and then I'll pray about it, and we'll see if we can find if Jesus says the same to me.
That's good.
Because I don't want to let necessarily. Can't do that to everybody, but there are some people I don't want to let them off the hook,
right?
Because it's part of their growth. It's part of the component in them. But so if I've done these 6 things, number 1, we got a job description. Number 2, we prayed and came back with multiple names. Then we met in person.
Mm-hmm.
Then we recruited using that visionary piece. This isn't need-based. This is the vision. This is the mission of Christ. Then we told them when they're going to start, when they're going to stop. We've created that. We've created the authority and accountability flow in this. And then we've established a time when I should hear back, giving them time to hear from Jesus. Because here's the deal with that last one. I don't need them saying no to me. I need them to say no to Jesus.
Yeah, which is so good.
Yeah, if Jesus says no to them, if they feel like he says no, who am I to argue with that?
Yeah.
But if they can hear him saying yes, 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 and they say no, they haven't said no to me. They've said no to him.
Yeah. Well, and even with that, when Because let's be honest, no matter where you volunteer, it gets tough. It's hard. The commitment, the getting up early, all of those things. And so when someone says yes to Jesus, when it gets tough, they will remember, or we can remind them, when they don't feel like it's going successful or whatever.
Really good.
We can say, we didn't do this because I said to do it, or because you just were looking for a place. You felt Jesus. We felt Jesus in this.
We did. We prayed about this, and we felt like this is what Jesus wanted. Sometimes that's a great point. That's a huge point for us. I've taught this. I've taught these 6 principles lots of times, and in a great situation, what I would say to a pastor is, you and your team, your staff, if it's just you in a smaller church, you start with this, you practice it, and after you've modeled it, then the people, then those leaders you brought in, you say to them, you teach it to them and say, now go do what I've done, and you build a culture. You build this into the culture of your church, because when I ask people, I asked you, how do you recruit? And your answer was, well,
we just present a need.
Present a need. But I say this is a cultural piece. It's a process. It's a journey. It's part of it.
Yeah.
But what it says is the people I'm trying to recruit, I've actually shown respect to you. I've honored you. What we're doing is we're creating a culture of honor. We're creating a culture that honors the Lord in service, that honors authority, that honors the servant, the worker, the volunteer, the staff member, whatever that is. I would say what a great way to even, if you're looking to hire a staff member, everybody wants to just get 10,000 resumes.
Right.
Well, if I start with a job description, then I begin to pray and I start reaching out through my networks, and then I have names, then I'm able to go, okay, Lord, which one or two? Then I'm able to start the process. Now it changes everything if we go from here down instead of just starting with the need and a person and trying to throw them into a spot. Yeah. It's not about filling a hole.
Right.
It's I say we keep talking about this, but there's always an eternal spiritual principle in these things, and that's what we're trying to put in as processes that point us towards the eternal mission of Christ.
Yeah.
So what's your big takeaway from that? I know you've heard this probably 4 or 5 times, and yet you...
Yeah, well, today my big takeaway is the fact that when you recruited me, there was no lunch involved, but when you recruited Marco, you took him to lunch. So I think you owe me a lunch is my big takeaway today. I've been sitting on that one.
You've been sitting on that one, I can tell. Well, let's see, 3 hours, 1 hour, 3 hours, 1 hour. Okay, all right. What's my takeaway?
No. On a real serious note, I think the takeaway is just being reminded. You don't recruit out of a need. If you're talking, we're in the kingdom business here, which we are. It needs to be attached to the kingdom principle, or the kingdom parts there. So,
I would hope that this would be a podcast this is very practical one. And there's not much theory in it. That this would be a podcast that pastors could go back to again and again and refresh themselves, that they could just say, hey, to a leader when you're that guy comes in and says, I need some workers. He says, well, listen to this, and then let's go find some.
Right.
So I would hope this would be it. I would even say to pastors who go, well, I need some workers. Well, here would be my question to you. Who can you go recruit?
Yeah.
Using these principles. Yeah. Who's coming? What position do you? I'm gonna ask you real quick. What position do you need to go back and say, okay, I need to do this with this. This is the position that we need to use it on right now.
Oh, the parking lot leader.
Okay, you know right who it is
already. I know.
There you go.
Yep.
Well, go do it then.
Till next time. Thank you for joining us today on the Advancement Podcast. The show notes are available on our website at www.advancement.cc, along with other resources. Again, this is Taylor Schote on behalf of Tim Ware and the entire Advancement team. We want you to remember that you are meant to advance.